Welcome to The Naked Truth. And now, your host, Bridget Barclay.
Welcome, guys. Welcome to The Naked Truth. And this is Annex Radio. Today, I have such an amazing English ufologist. It's Peter Paget. Peter has wrote many books. He's revised his books on the Welsh Triangle. Easy for me to say. I don't know why, because I love that case. But without further ado, I'm going to go straight to Peter because we have 45 minutes. So, Peter, are you there? Hello, Peter.
Hello. Nice to speak with you.
Nice to speak with you. And like I said, Peter, you've been in ufology for a long time. And within ufology, you've done so many cases, worked with some of the best researchers, you've experiencers, and your in-depth knowledge on the Welsh Triangle. And obviously Netflix, I think it was episode 2 of Encounters, talked about the triangle, the Welsh Triangle in Pembrokeshire. So tonight we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about old ufology, and we're going to talk about the Welsh Triangle. And I've been through some of your YouTube videos, and I love the fact that you talk about all of the atoms, frequencies, and the different languages that the ETs sort of used to communicate with us. You have such a vast knowledge. So without further ado, hello, Peter, and thank you. So
I give you a bit of an intro on me?
Yeah, do it.
Me has a double life. There's me sitting here on the planet Earth, okay, and there's me who's been around the solar system for a very long time, because people incarnate, as you're probably aware. I used to be a Buddhist once, but I wasn't a very good Buddhist, so now I'm probably Christian again. Basically, people incarnate into this body, this thing, and then you live your life, and then you leave this mortal coil, and hopefully you go on to greater things. Some people do, some people don't. My brief history, because we've only got limited time, is at the age of 17, I was fortunate enough to be a temporary advisor to Her Majesty's government of oil pollution control. I invented the current oil pollution control technology, which in fact is used worldwide. If you see those sausage-shaped things that are around tankers and things by wrecks when they spill, and they contain the oil because it floats on the water, then I invented that. And I invented other things which I gave to Her Majesty's government, and then they sold it to BP way back for a lot of money, and I got another letter of thanks from the Cabinet Office. So I've always been what is called in England on side. I'm known to be on side. I'm pro-British government, pro-HMG, pro the we allegedly stand for back then. Okay. These days, I'm not so sure. Now,
right.
In cutting forward, I was working with Hans Holzer. Your readers will probably... He's no longer with us, wonderful guy, wrote about 49 books on all kinds of different things. And I was his agent, his literary agent in the United Kingdom and Europe. And I was working with a guy called Peter Somner, who was editor for Hans at Granada Publishing, which was associated with Granada Television.
Yep.
And we were working on a documentary called The Euphonauts, which is also a book by Hans.
Yeah. Oh, we have missed Peter. Peter's gone.
Paper.
Peter's off. Here he comes. Yep, there you're back. Okay. Back in the room. Yep.
Back in the room. Under my arm was a newspaper, tabloid newspaper. And on the headline was The Welsh Triangle, which had been coined by that newspaper to describe the amazing events that were happening in the west of England. And Peter Somner looked at this and said, that's a book. That's a book. He had recently been inspired by the Bermuda Triangle,
Right.
And candidly, he wanted a best-selling competitive in his publishing house. And so he wrote me a check. Then I was already ghosting for Granada as a writer. I've been an editor and a writer. I was trained as an editor and as a script writer. And he wrote me to the area of the Welsh Triangle for 6 months. And that was the foundation for the creation of the Welsh Triangle, which was published in 1979, ran 5
2 years after.
editions.
2 years after then, wasn't it? 2 years after the actual incident itself, because it's 77, wasn't it?
Well, it was a continuing window.
Yeah.
We had originally been investigating the Warminster. From then, that died down a bit, and we were tasked to go to St. Bride's Bay, also by the Americans who wanted to know what was going on, because they're very, very super secret listening station there, with hydrophones in the Atlantic to listen to ships and Russian submarines. Was having a spell of bother, principally by being infiltrated by aliens. And I'm not kidding. I mean, this is really what the local people were witnessing. A surveillance of the American surveillance system by them's upstairs.
Absolutely.
And they were concerned in our opinion. They were concerned in our opinion because the system was in effect, but it was tracking them at enormous underwater speeds, because a very high speed submarine at top speed will do 48 knots. These babies were doing way over 40, certainly in excess of 150 knots underwater. And they
technical issue again. He'll be back. It's worth waiting for, honestly. Carry on.
UFOs is the principal suppression of information on UFOs is by UFOs, is by ET. ET does not want you to know what ET is up to and has been up to, because down here on Earth, you are a farm. You are literally a farm. They use it and look at it as perhaps as a nature reserve, as a genetic nature reserve, but they use it as a farm. And stay under cover, under radar, literally if they can, because they can be radar black quite easily, which is a technology which has been developed by the Americans to a degree with the stealth technology, which is the way you paint aircraft and you emit conflicting signals from the aircraft to confuse the radars. Now, the ETs have been around for a very long time. ETs is a bit of a misnomer, because the majority beings, if you wish, who control and fly and operate the ET systems, in fact, are here. They are in the Earth lunar system, and they've been years. They are local. They give the illusion, and there is indeed incoming from further afield areas in the solar system and indeed in the galaxy, in the near galaxy. But most of them are in your backyard. And they operate the Earth as a source of resources. They get a lot of fresh water. They're always around fresh water, picking it up. The moon, where they've got lots of bases on the moon. I go into some of this detail in my books, which I'm going to plug here, because in the limited time that we've got, we're not going to cover very much.
Nope. I want to go to the
just a flip to the one here. So there's the Welsh Triangle Revisited, is a really important book on the Welsh Triangle. Back of that, you see there's Secret Life of a Spook, because in fact I've been a spook. And what you can't really see is another book called UFO UK Updated. Now, they're all available on Amazon, because Amazon is very efficient. I know some people don't like Amazon, but they're very efficient. And I'm there on all the Amazon territories worldwide.
So those are the updates.
The old one, they're the updates. The old one that you've got there, which you commented on, sold over 500,000 copies.
And then can you tell me the story about how you bought all of the rest of them?
Because it was published in 1979, The British government and the Americans were so concerned that their super secret listening station down there in St. Bride's Bay was suddenly front page news on the newspapers. Had they bought up virtually the whole of the first edition, about 70 or 80,000 copies of my book,
That's
and
remarkable.
burnt them. They burnt them. I was delighted. We reprinted it, and I think they gave up after that. Burning books is something that you really something out of a George Orwell sci-fi, isn't it? Burning books. But they had a bad experience in the past with a book called Spycatcher by Peter Wright, who was a senior in British security. He'd written a book called Spycatcher, and they tried to ban that book and keep it in Europe and not have it over here because the public, the British public, the American guys who mustn't know this shit.
Yeah.
Okay, you must.
Another swearer. Good on you.
Everybody else. The Russians, the Chinese, the Germans, the English, the French, they know all theirs. We know everything. We know everything. There is no such thing as a secret. It's a fallacy there's a secret. The only things that are kept secret are from you guys, because it would be embarrassing to have, all these mistakes and all of these conspiracies. I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I'm a conspiracy analyst. In security, you're always analyzing the other side's intelligence and what they're up to and what they're trying to do, and countering that. What did you want to ask me?
I was just because when you said you were talking about surveillance and things, I read in your bio that you were at the scene of when Lady Di had the car crash as well.
I wasn't at the scene. No.
Okay.
I was sent to investigate it after the event. I was in London.
Okay.
But I mean, I've done lots of tasks. That's what they're called. I used to work for different kinds of different branches of the security services, both you guys in America and over here, off-piste, which is, as we say, when I was left of field, I had deniable responsibility. So if people like me get taken out, we can say, oh, it's nothing to do with us. No, he wasn't one of our guys. No, he was dependent. He was. So I've always been under radar. I've always been, not on the official books. I've worked with all kinds of people, serious, very serious people, and we've done some serious stuff. And we've averted some incidents over the world. I'm quite proud of what we've done over the years. Averted nuclear accidents and what have you. But no, I mean, I'm very careful what I say, but I mean, if you read my book, Secret Life, up with it, because there's things there that need to be known. Because in government and diplomacy and politicians in general, military in general, they make mistakes. Obviously, they're human.
Yeah, right.
I mean, we're all human. They make mistakes. And the principal purpose is to cover up the mistakes.
Yeah, right.
So the intelligence agencies, of which I have worked for, part of our job, smooth over the mistakes and make everyone look good. Or just distract you from, I won't say you, the general public, or ufologists or whatever. There's a slight misnomer. I'm not actually I've written books on UFOs, but I'm an analyst. All right, I'm not locked into the UFO community. I started independently, as I say. I started as a scientific advisor, as such, and then I've done other analysis of intelligence and other matters, economic matters, and what have you over the years. So the alien thing, so called. Is just a part of that. It's part of my remit. I was investigating things that no government would officially admit that it was interested in. And even now, it's fascinating to me that the same blanket denials, the same, Fitzpatrick, what have you, Denials are still being churned out because the general public, those who are behind the goggle box television screen, will accept 90% of what they're told, allegedly.
Yeah.
And even in the Second World War, German publicity and propaganda said basically, if you tell a lie big enough and often enough, it will become the truth. And that is still in practice today. If you just keep repeating the same old story, even though then people would say, oh, well, I heard it on the news, it was on the BBC, it was on the NBC, it was on CNN, well, it must be true. Well, maybe not. My observation is never believe a story until it is official. If it's officially denied, it's probably the truth. And then, what they used to, one of my jobs was to detect what had gone over the wall, what secrets had leaked, because there's always things that, going out. The operation was to issue a story which was similar to the one that had gone over the wall, whatever it was, which had enough flaws built into it that it could then be shot down. A few weeks later, that story is shot down. And everyone says, "Oh, yeah, the original story was just all part of that rubbish."
Yeah,
it's a very effective technique.
A bit like the balloon at Roswell.
Set it up and shoot it. That's the principle. A lie sandwiched between two truths, a truth sandwiched between two lies. It's got to have a degree of authenticity. I mean, there's so much stuff that has come out now. Roswell, we mentioned, is a classic. There's cases that are solid, rock solid cases, all kinds of interesting stuff. Now, as I said to you before, what you have to realize is that so-called ET is the principal suppression on UFOs and ET. You can argue the Men in Black, but that's just one little small aspect of it.
Yeah.
They don't know. They don't want you guys, the general public, or ufologists, or whoever, what they are doing, because they've been doing it for a very long time, getting away with it, and treating you guys like cattle. Quite lovingly, like a herdsman, will treat his herd some consideration. It's in his interest that they're in good health. But principally, they turn a blind eye to anything that you get up to by misdemeanors and evil and what have you. They're only really interested in material, which is producing surrogate babies. The big part of it is the procreation program, because they have moved on from the fact they cannot produce themselves. If you've ever looked at pictures of ETs, as you'll notice, they're quite thin, they've got small hips, they've got big heads. Now you work it out. Can you get a big head through of hips in the process of normal birth? No, obviously not. I know they produce hybrids and they produce combinations of genetics, but in the actual really advanced, they have moved beyond natural production. And what they do is they produce they get sperm and eggs, and they produce in vitro procreation, and then they bring fetuses on in a number of different ways. They may reinsert them back into a human female for a certain period of time, and then they may extract the baby, but not allowing it to breathe. You mustn't allow it to breathe. In the Welsh Triangle, there's one or two cases of that that is detailed. And then it is then brought on in the chambers, in the fluid cylinders, and they can bring them on very quickly. So they can actually produce a teenager in about few months. They don't have to go through the baby growing up children stage. In fact, it's an interesting point.
That's why they get us. That's why they get us to go there.
Children. They don't have children. You are the children.
Yeah.
In effect, you're the children down here. I mean, if you remember Barbarella, dear old, the wonderful Barbarella story, the children were to the Arctic Pole, weren't they? and they were kept away from proper society until they were fit for proper society, and then they were brought back in. And there, a lot in fiction, you see parodies of what actually is the reality that's out there. But you are not a things. I don't know, because you might suddenly wake up. We don't want you to wake up. You just sit there and just read your headlines and elect Joe Biden. The pinnacle of leader of the world.
Yep.
Thinly vowed cynicism. I apologize for that.
So, and also, so also you said about, because it is true. So if you go back to the beings as well, you've got the slit for the mouth, you've got a little hole for the nose. You said it. I saw it on a YouTube. They have no predators. And it's true, right?
Most of the small greys are droids. Droids. In one of my lectures, which was on dear old Miles Johnson's Christmas Lectures 22.
Yeah.
I comment on this, is that a lot of the small greys, I mean, that's why we call them small, are basically droids. They're bio robots. They're not actually people, as like you and I would be people. Well, they're functional. And as I commented, and this is something you picked, you and other people, they work in threes. Tested them, 3, 6, 9, because they work as a group, because any one of them can be very easily overridden instructional wise. I can instruct a draw problem, but if there's 3 of them, they will work together and they form a unit. Okay.
Yeah.
A unit. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm trying to make that a triangle, and if they're working together as a triangle, each other, they basically are a lot more powerful and effective than if they're working singly. Singly, they are very, very vulnerable, and you can tell them if anybody gets a single droid, a single ear in their bedroom or whatever, you can tell it what to do. They're rather like on again. What was it? Robbie the Robot. Robbie the Robot, if that goes back to fiction.
The Forbidden Planet?
Forbidden Planet. Yeah. The Forbidden Planet contains a lot of hidden information.
A lot of them do, though, don't they?
Very, very near very near the truth. Very near the truth. This is the hidden planet. The hidden planet, the underground facilities, the history, the flood, the destruction, the adversarial conflicts, wars, if you want, that go back a long, long, long time. You go and read the Sanskrit. You read about atomic weapons in the Sanskrit. And you go back to the pre-Egyptian dynasties. You look at the technology that was involved there. Granite boxes, carved to within microns, to within thousandths of an inch. You can't do that with crude chisels and things like that. This planet has been in between vying forces in the near solar systems for a very long time. You've never actually been owned by any one group. Even now, you are owned by 3 groups, and that might be offensive. Are owned. Like a herd of cows are owned by the farmer up at the farmhouse. And if you look at it like a nature reserve, let's go back to a different analogy. A nature reserve, where say you reserve, and the animals, and I'm not saying that people are animals, but I'm saying the creatures in the nature reserve can't leave the nature reserve. They're stuck there by something called gravity. Invented gravity, or he discovered or wrote about it. And you are in that nature reserve, and there are elements of exploitation, there are elements of education, there are elements of enlightenment, but they're all schooling and character building, which are going on there. And you've got 3 different forces who are opposed to each other. I'm not talking terrestrial nations here. I'm talking about 3 different forces that are not really in agreement with each other, which I only work with one.
I'm going to have to put you on I'm going to have to put you on a break. I've just been told we've got to go on a break, so we're just going to go on a break, and then we're going to come back. We're going to talk about we're going to talk about the Welsh Triangle, because actually, what you're talking about, whether it be the cattle moving from fields to fields, beings and everything, all actually are a part of this story and what you're talking about collectively. So we're going to go on a commercial break, and we'll be back in a few minutes. See you in a minute.
Bye.
Unlock the mysteries of the spirit realm with the new book, Meeting Wallace. In this channeled work by renowned psychic medium Larry Costa, the reader will delve into the profound wisdom of his spirit guide, Wallace. Together, they share the transformative journey of harnessing psychic powers from the celestial plane. Discover the extraordinary psychic gifts that have empowered Larry on his path, and immerse yourself in a thought-provoking and awe-inspiring read. Meeting Wallace is a groundbreaking endeavor, and it is a perspective seen through the eyes of a spirit guide. Discover the wisdom of the spirit realm alongside actual photographs of ghosts and spirit guides. Get the book Meeting Wallace by Larry Costa at Amazon.com. Hey UFO conference enthusiasts, we've got another great event for you in 2024. The Saucers and Aliens Kansas UFO Day in Dimension G is being held in the UFO capital of Kansas, Geneseo, on July 6th. This is a fun festival in the middle of nowhere. There will be a parade, decorated yards, costumes, vendors, speakers, and a showing of the movie The Day the Earth Stood Still. Appropriately, an 8-foot-tall statue of Gort and a statue of Klaatu will be dedicated. This will be the only museum in the U.S. with these custom-made statues. If you'd like to donate to the statue project or attend the event, visit GeneseoMuseum.com. That's GENESEO Museum.com. Be sure to bring your camera when you attend the event. That's GeneseoMuseum.com.
While most near-death experiencers return to this plane of existence with alluring tales of their time spent in the presence of the divine, what happens when one crosses the veil into the afterlife, into the void? In the new book, Dying to Meet Them, Mindy Toutfest describes her journey to the afterlife after a devastating aneurysm, how a strange turn of events would lead her to spiritual growth, divine healing, UFO experiences, and a greater understanding of the universe. Get your copy of Dying to Meet Them today at Amazon.com or visit unxmedia.com for more information on this book and more amazing selections from UnX Media Publishing at unxmedia.com.
Welcome back to The Naked Truth on Annex Radio. Sorry, Annex Network. I have Peter Paget here. Peter, welcome back.
Hi, yeah.
Right.
Let's cut to the chase. That's because
Yeah.
it's interesting, some of those adverts there.
Yeah.
You live in a physical world.
Yeah.
This stuff, 3D.
Yeah.
Beyond which there's a quantum space, which is at a different frequency. Now, if you think on a piano, on a piano you've got different octaves, right? Empathetic notes, 1 up, 2 up, 3 up, the octaves. Well, it's the same thing in matter, is that in matter, this stuff here, there's more space than there is actual stuff. So you are energy. All things are a vibrating energy held in a matrix, and they work at different frequencies. So you can have 2 different parallel universes inside each other, and they can coexist in the same, but one does not have awareness of the other. This applies principally to you. Now, a lot of the physical people here, human beings, have limited ability to see beyond their spectrum. Others, like me, have capacity to see beyond their spectrum, and hear beyond their spectrum, like sounds in the ears or what have you. And what you're dealing with often with so-called ETs or UFOs is interfrequency situations where they are monitoring, watching, modifying, farming, and managing the planet and managing you to a degree. But you have a high degree of self-will. This is of the planets that I'm one of the most free will. And the free will gives you the license to do all kinds of nasty things if you want to, or lovely things if you want to. So this is very much a sort of like an out west frontier area of the local galaxy. There's not a lot of rules. It's very much, out in the wild west here. And this is where you get ego politicians and groups, basically furthering their own or just protecting their own territories. Now, they do fall within the influence of these 3 external groups or internal groups, because some of them are interdimensional. And one of them tends to focus on what you might and the United States territories, which is, go way beyond the USA itself. And the other, one of them focuses more on the Asian sector, and the other one focuses more on the Arctic sector. A lot of activity down in Antarctica down there, which is very, very secret. You're not allowed to go to certain places in Antarctica, not for decades and decades now, because they're completely off limits. Buzz went down there, as you know, and then came away. But I was in an office right next to Edgar Mitchell for a whole year down in Florida. Edgar and I spoke extensively about what had happened. And they did go to the moon, contrary to that they didn't. The pictures were done, many of the pictures were done in studio before they went, because they knew that the radiation in space would fog the film. So they had to have good, nice PR pictures of and the LEM and what have you. And that was done, but it doesn't mean to say they didn't go.
No,
they did go, but a lot of the pictures were pre-prepared because they were competing with the Russians to have
wobbly
good publicity. but
like coronation.
A lot of people, he said a lot of people came back. Many of the astronauts who came back lost it. They turned into alcoholics, or they had mental problems, or they got God. When you meet the divine face to face out there, it's a pretty startling experience. It really is a very, very soul changing experience. And some of the astronauts, Egbert told me this definitively. When they were asleep, they would return in an outer body experience back to their families, and they would witness family events that were going on. And they thought it was a dream, but when they got home, the event or that situation had actually occurred, and they had witnessed it when they were in space, when they were asleep.
Well, it's funny you should say that, because you've got a new film out called Spaceman, Adam Sandler, and actually that scenario you've just said is pretty much the story of Spaceman. It's on, I think it's on Netflix. Yeah, Netflix. It's a film. Yeah, that's quite quite different for him to do, but very thought provoking for other people that are not into this realm by any means. But yeah, so can I just skip back to 77? Because it's so interesting, the Welsh Triangle. And like I said, that on Netflix, they had Steven Spielberg put together on a series on episode 2 about the Welsh Triangle. There was so much that obviously wasn't in it because it was only like an hour segment. And, you know, there is another book written by another author about the Welsh Triangle, Haven. For yourself, I mean, it's quite extraordinary in so many ways what went on, you know, for them to be clothed within spacesuits, you know, with helmets and everything, and then during the day, I found fascinating because you said that as well, and I just thought, God, yeah, you do hear a lot of the old cases where in the suits. I saw a man at the in the garden. He had like a big black suit on, not a helmet, but yeah, very Men in Black at the bottom of the garden, suited up, but not during the night. Different encounters in the evening, different encounters.
The ETs have certain difficulties down here.
Yeah.
One is to ultraviolet light. So in the day, they wear the visor, which is a darkened visor to keep out the UV. In the Welsh Triangle, often those entities were seen at night without the need the helmet, because there was no ultraviolet. The sun had gone down. They did have the air tube coming over because they need an enhanced atmospheric oxygen content, combination of gases. They can breathe this atmosphere, but it's sometimes they have to adapt to it. But it was really very, very simple. I mean, when I went down there, I interviewed 3,000 different witnesses approximately.
Gosh.
And I was
wow.
Often when these events happened, and just to run through them quickly, it's really very, very simple. The Americans had the listening station with the cables running out into the Atlantic with the hydrophones, listening to all of this. You can identify an individual submarine, an individual ship, and you can plot it by triangulation where it's going. If you get close enough, you can even hear the voices of the crew inside, believe it or not. And you can hear, well, you know, you hear your natural noises. But they were picking up alien, if you want the word, alien activity. The aliens didn't want that to happen. So they came into the base and they override and interfere with the computing. And they can delete images, so they can infuse other images. I mean, that's what the Russians can do now with their electronic warfare. I mean, you know, they're pretty good at that. So the aliens get into any computer system, any surveillance system, and they can jig around with it. They can disappear. They can produce false images. Some of the images that have been detailed in the recent of UAEs are, in fact, how can I put it? They're kind of like they're created images. The aliens can create three-dimensional objects. They're very good at illusion.
Yeah, definitely.
They're like
screen memories.
They can create all kinds of things which you think are real. And they are real to a degree, but they're not necessarily in your physical space. It's like my picture. Right, but it's made up of a series of pixels, isn't it? You're not actually seeing a physical 3D. You're seeing a representation through the electronics of the pixels, and that's produced by software and the whole. You can produce holograms, of course. I mean, the aliens can produce holograms. I call them aliens, but they're not really aliens. They are
Beings.
You are part of them. They are part
them
of you.
Them upstairs. I call them that as well. Their
DNA. Their DNA. And due to their surrogate procreation program, they have part of your DNA. They select people to create their next generations because they can't do it one-on-one. They would do it. They don't have live birth. Mammals produce live birth. Right? That is the definition of a mammal. They are not mammals. Okay? And in that sense, that doesn't demean them in any sense because different systems of reproduction.
Yeah.
Flowers, have procreative systems which are different.
Yep.
And animals and lizards and snakes, that you can't be prejudicial about that. There's so many different, but what you're dealing with here is, and I mean here on planet Earth, is you're dealing with the local owners of the planet. All right, you are owned. You are the groups, and they operate locally, and they operate very, very surreptitiously and very, very quietly. Sometimes ethically, sometimes not so ethically, because they're not that bothered. So one group, my group, concerned about your education, your enlightenment, your progress, your future, the biosphere, the continuation of the planet as a healthy, verdant biosphere in that another group is totally mercenary. They treat you very much like a sort of herd of pigs. And the pig, as you probably know, is quite near to the human being in its cell structure. That's why they've actually tried pig hearts in human beings. And one or two people have had pig heart transplants in human beings, and they work for a while. But you have to also realize that there's a lot of droids. The droids are biorobots. They are biological, but they're electronic. They have 4 hemispheres: front, left, rear, front, right, rear, and they have electronic implants in them, and they can communicate in scalar waves and also chemically, and they can basically control human beings. The number of times you see, and there's an encounter where a human being says, "Oh, I become unconscious," or "I couldn't move," or "I sort of moved like a robot," they can actually get in there and control your brain, because they were instrumental in modifying.
God knows what they'll find in mine.
Well, I mean, they could try.
I know.
Try some
or what they have found in mine for years. I should say.
Politicians for many a decade, and I haven't found very many yet. I think a large empty space in there that can be modified is probably the most desirable function for
Got a little townhouse going in there, I think.
I've advised every side of the aisle. I'm not political. I've advised both sides of the aisle. I advise 4 or 5 different governments in this country. It's from 4 different prime ministers for my advice.
So now,
listen.
even
now.
Yeah. Okay.
Pardon?
That's interesting. I wonder now, more so now, are you advising?
No, they ignore me. I'm very off message. You see, we now have also
England
running politics. I mean, if you look at the great figures in politics in the past, your Churchills and your Roosevelts, and even
absolutely,
I'm not being political, I'm just saying they were characters, weren't they? They were big people. They had a certain degree of gravitas. What you've got now in most politicians is also rans, career politicians. They've been years or whatever, 40, 50, 70, 80 years. And they're in a kind of bubble. They believe their own bullshit. They believe their own rubbish, and they try to get you to believe it as it's rubbish. You know that you're being conned, but as I say, if you tell the lie often enough and big enough, then no one's
believe it enough.
And they kind of shut down. They shut down thinking. They shut down analysis. So somebody like me now, for God knows what, nearly nigh on 60 years, is I know too much. I know when they're blagging it.
Well, actually, isn't Winston Churchill's famous line, wasn't it, to Georgina Brewley on her book, "You can't tell the people"? I remember that. You
can't tell the people.
Yeah, that's a great line.
Well, no, it was Margaret Thatcher said that.
Oh yeah, Margaret Thatcher. Margaret Thatcher.
Yeah, said that. Yeah, said that. You can't tell the people. Yeah. You see, a lot of people and information. I mean, the Bush family, the Clintons, have had quite a lot of information. They've actually, dug into it. Bush Senior, not knew quite a lot. Hillary was before she got ill. Was quite interested, but most of them are governed ultimately by a very mercenary two factors. One, they're scared of what people know about them because they've all got dragon's tails. Epstein was just the tip of the iceberg, I assure you.
Yeah.
They've all got dragon's tails. They've all got things they're scared of you knowing.
Yeah.
So they're distracting you away from what the dodgy things they've done. And they're pretty greedy. I mean, unfortunately, I've met a lot of very, very rich people. I mean, very, very rich people in this world. And they have a disease which is basically called greed.
Yes.
And when you've got $1 billion, $1 billion quid, why would you want more? Could you? How do you spend £1 billion? So it gets to be
Buy
like
more books.
gets to be like a compulsive gambler. There's one man who lives in a bunker in the Caribbean, in an island, who spends 17 hours of his day working the hedge funds and what have you. Never hardly is he, and he's extraordinarily rich, but he's obsessed.
Right.
He's a bit like Dr. No, if you want.
All right. Yeah.
Dr. No had his own private island.
Yeah.
And Ian Fleming, you see, used to work in intelligence, and he used to creep into his things which, were sort of wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Because 7 is the executive assassination number of
Hence the
certain
007.
intelligence agency.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the reason that's why he was because that means that those people are licensed to kill. So that was a fact. You see, he's worked in a fact, and then he's written a very, very fictional series of stories. And now, of course, the franchise, the modern stories are nothing to do with Fleming. They're
I know.
They're just created now, principally run by the stunt teams. They stunt a page, isn't it? There's wonderful stunts. There's very little plot. You're
it's all
not supposed to use
graphics, isn't it, mainly as well? Yeah.
It's just excitement. It's just titillation, and it's entertainment. It's entertainment. Yeah. But you see,
the old English Bond films were the best, weren't they? The proper old English on the Sunday afternoon.
The trouble is now that news has now become entertainment.
Yeah,
it's not really reporting. It's not really journalism. There's very, very few honest journalists out there. There's just people who just repeat the propaganda through an unattributed source. They just take their paycheck and they keep their jobs, and they're looking after the pension fund.
Yeah, and it's getting worse, isn't it? Worse and worse and worse, I think. So
I think it's probably as worse as it ever was. Yeah.
I mean,
I think this year of 2024, Anno Domini, is a very, very critical year. You'll find lots and lots of changes, lots of critical things going on. 25, this will shake out.
Because obviously you're heavily into your astrology as well, aren't you? And your different the astrology and alternative medicines as well, aren't you?
I used to run alternative medicine clinics for a while. I got raided by the police because we were being too successful. I was told to shut down, or they'd throw me into jail.
Well, they did that with all of the coil and silver, isn't it? What people were making, so they didn't like the fact that people were actually trying to heal themselves with the silver.
You have to do your own private. You have to do your own private research, look after yourself, and know there's a lot of very commonplace generic cures out there which were very effective. But you see, I had a friend in Europe, and he developed lots of natural therapies, and his company was then bought up by a Swiss pharmaceutical company, and they worked out of these therapies what could they reproduce in the lab cheaply and have a patent on it, and everything else that was effective they burnt because they didn't want competition, because a lot of pharmaceutical companies are not interested in keeping you well, they're interested in keeping you ill, because you become a permanent customer. They sell you your life. You take these pills for the next 50 years and we give you your life. Maybe
cut it back to basics and you'll live a lot longer. I know that's a different thing. So
in America, after you.
No, after you. Go on then. No, go for it.
In America and in the United Kingdom and in Europe and in the world, in Asia, there are a lot of very, very good people. Very, very good people. Most suppressed and pushed to the sideline because the greedy, egocentric characters and regimes suppress that culture because it's want you to think. They don't want you to understand. They just want you to comply and pay your taxes and build more nuclear submarines from a late enemy who probably doesn't exist. Okay,
yeah, right.
if you it's the old create the problem, offer the solution. Is you've got to have an enemy in order to create fear. You've got to have a sheepdog out there in order to cower the herd, the flock of sheep, into going this way, going that way. And you've just got to grow up and say, this is all illusion. This is all illusion. People are not out there, seeking to grab your territory and what have you. They're not. They're more interested in looking after their own affairs. But the mercenary, there is one group of ETs which are very mercenary. They treat you just like a farm.
Oh yeah. Okay. So you've got yes. I mean, that's a talk for another day because you've got all of the different relative races. And actually, when I had a chat with you the other day, and I was saying about the horse heads, I was looked into it and speaking with someone. It was sort of like the Arcturian races. Some of them come as in horses in different colours, and one of them is the brown, which I found.
Yeah, but they use images. Let me explain what that's all about.
Okay.
Now they can create holographic images which are very real. You can actually touch them. Okay.
Oh, I know. I could
even
feel the breath.
Even our labs over here, big lens, and you put light through it. The light will operate and act just as if it's a real glass lens. You can create a holographic image, and the horse head was probably something to do with your Sagittarius kind of talking to that. It's an image. You see, I'm talking to you in English, right? And you're
proper English,
Queen's English. Yes,
absolutely.
When I worked in America, I could vote, paid American taxes, and I walked into the voting station. The little old lady there said, "You've got a very peculiar accent." And I said, "Yes, it's the Queen's English. We invented this language." And the point is, I'm talking to you in English. I'm talking to you in words. I could be talking to you in Spanish or French. Words. Behind those words are thought. Okay, and
this
a
is
thought
interesting.
is
this
not
is what I
a
like.
language, an interpretation. Okay, so what you have to bear in mind is that when you're being given images, whether they be words or visual images, they're trying to convey a message. Now, a lot of ETs don't speak English. A lot of ETs don't speak English. They convey images or thoughts, and then the people who receive them interpret
it into our language.
Glossary in their own dictionary of words that they or images that they have in their brain.
No, that's
so.
If
you look at old languages, if you look at old language hieroglyphs, they are images of what they are. A wavy line in Egyptian hieroglyphs is water. It's as water appears. Okay, it's the symbol is sympathetic to the meaning. We're at 54:20. You've got about 6 minutes. What do we do now?
You've got we're at 56 in a minute. We're at 56 in a minute. So you've got a couple more minutes.
Right.
And we didn't talk about Broadhaven, but we're going to come back. Yeah, we're going to come back for next week. You've got part 2 next week. Well, to be recorded for next week. So
yeah.
You have had experiences yourself, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll tell you one quickly. Which was a series of large asteroid rocks that had broken up from a larger asteroid, was heading towards Jupiter, and it was going into Jupiter in July of 1994. It went in over the course of about 6 or 7 days because they'd spread out these rocks. And I was in the process of monitoring those with a bunch of other people down in Devon, which you're familiar with. Devon is in the west of England. And it was in July, the wheel opened. About 3 o'clock in the morning afterwards, witnessed one of the big rocks go in. And I mean, they created craters as big as the diameter of the Earth. I mean, this was huge. I'd gone to sleep. And I was hauled out through the window upstairs to a craft and given certain information and certain education. I was chipped. in my left ear. Then I woke up in the morning with blood in my left ear. I had no hearing, no hearing in my left ear at all. Even now, it's completely deaf. But I had sounds. These high-pitched whistles and bangs, and you've got them too. I know other people have them. Not tinnitus. It's not tinnitus. I know about tinnitus.
I know. Yeah.
And when I was, because in Devon we have lanes with high hedges, single track,
absolutely,
blind corners. I would get coming up to a corner, a definite pinging in that ear, and I knew that meant pull over into the bar. And absolutely within seconds, a big truck or lorry or tanker would come whizzing around that corner, and I had been given that warning that was down the line. And other people have, you've got to be, they're there for you. They're not language, they're signals, they're telemetry. And I've had various things. I'm protected, and the people around me, like I have, are protected. See, certain things have been rather interesting that have happened. And one of the things that is just quickly closing on this, because then we're running out of time. What the ETs can also do is teleportation. This is into the Lorentz effect. The Lorentz effect, teleportation, Tesla, the moving of things through different frequencies. They can actually, they can take an atomic pit. You know, in an atomic bomb, you have a pit. There's the thing that the rest of the neutrons descends off everything else. They can turn that pit into pure iron. They can change the atomic shell into pure iron. And that's what happened at Rendlesham. That's why it was such a secret, because at Rendlesham, the atomic warheads were neutralized all over the world. The Russians kept it secret. The Chinese kept it secret. We kept it secret. The Americans kept it secret. None of us had a nuclear bomb anymore. I don't know what the situation is now. But the interesting thing is, tried to launch one of their missiles the other month from the submarine. Dear old Shaps was down there, the minister, on the submarine. You know, it looks at the deterrent. It came up and it went plop and it sank.
Oh,
I wonder who. You think about it. I think it was a demonstration.
Yeah. Just watch. This isn't the first time we've done this. We'll keep doing it. It's your learning lesson, isn't it?
The last one, they did one in 2016.
Yeah.
At Minuteman sites, they can turn them on and off.
Right. What I'm going to have to do.
Site, every single nuclear site is monitored and can be switched off like that.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. I've spoken to a few people that have worked
instantly
at nuclear bases that have witnessed the
instantly.
Scalar
time instantly.
Yeah, Robert Salas was on here, and Dan Willis. They're both working on a nuclear station. So I'm going to have to say goodbye to you, Peter, and to all of our fellow Americans. A goodbye, but we are going to have you back for part 2. But I think actually it might be quite interesting to speak about the Rendlesham and the Broadhaven, because I still find that is just, it should be more talked about more, because it has such
you people can talk to me directly in my books address.
Have you got emails?
You can send me an email and I will answer every single one.
And you will make
the abuse.
And your email replies are absolutely outstanding. Absolutely. So informative and make me laugh as well. So watch out, guys, what you'll get back from Peter.
Remember this final phrase. Never believe a story is officially denied.
Okay. Never believe that. Okay, I'll try and remember that one. Or I'll try and remember that one. Well, thank you ever so much, Peter, for having you here, and for the American audience and for our English audience as well, that has had an insight to the vast knowledge of Peter Paget. So if you Race will put the links up for Peter's revised books. Are available on Amazon, and if you have the old school books, please go and get the revised books with more information. So a huge thank you from Peter Paget, and I hope it's been informative on many angles, backwards and forth, but thank you for listening to us on The Naked Truth, and we will be back for part 2 soon.